What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, every single year, the NFL holds a training camp. Every single organization has a training camp to try to build their roster up, decide who is the best fit and the best player for that organization to keep around. And, when it comes to building the roster, this is the part of the season where the toughest decisions have to be made. Now, the Detroit Lions are no exception to this, as they have countless tough decisions to make when it comes to roster spots, when it comes to depth chart positionings, and so many other things that, it's just tough to imagine making these tough decisions. But some decisions are obviously tougher than others. And today, I'm going to be going over the 5 toughest decisions the Detroit Lions have to make in this year's training camp. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day to make mine, and I'd be very, very appreciative to everybody that chooses to do so. And with that being said, let's get into talking about these tough decisions that the Detroit Lions have to make in this year's training camp. Now, before we do get into these top 5, I do have a few honorable mentions that I think are important, but aren't necessarily the toughest decisions to make. Now, the first honorable mention is the interior defensive line depth. Now, you got guys competing for this like Jashon Cornell, John Penisini, Kevin Strong, and Nick Williams, but I don't necessarily know. It's obviously going to be competitive, and they have a tough choice to make on who's going to be the second, third, fourth, and however many guys they carry all the way down the depth chart, and who's actually going to make the team. However, I do think there are a couple favorites for this. I do think John Penisini is a favorite. I do think that Nick Williams is a favorite for the defensive tackle position, and I do think that John Penisini and Kevin Strong are at a disadvantage right now. So I don't think it's as tough I don't think it is as tough of a decision to make for the Detroit Lions coaches as some of these other positions. And then we get to the tight end, whether you're going to keep Hunter Bryant or Isaac Nauta on the roster. They both bring different things. Now, again, I think Hunter Bryant is at a little bit more of an advantage at this point, and I'll get into what I think Isaac Nauta's role will be in a minute. But I think Hunter Bryant has a distinct advantage here because of his receiving ability and, just the fact that he is a bigger body tight end that is a really big receiving threat, and we know that the Detroit Lions love their receiving tight ends. And then the fullback spot. Now, the fullback spot isn't, super important. It's the fullback, right? But we could really have 3 guys competing, and that's Nick Bawden, Sellers, and then Isaac Nauta is, I think, competing. I think I've seen a lot of things that Isaac Nauta might be transitioning to fullback. He's a pretty good blocker. He reads the hole pretty well. He could transition to that tight end, and we could cut both the current fullbacks on the roster right now. So, those are obviously camp battles that are important to this team's success next year, but I don't necessarily think that they are the toughest decisions or the most important positions when it comes to making these roster cuts. Now, getting into my number 5 position, the 5th toughest choice the Detroit Lions have to make this offseason is who is going to be our depth linebackers. Now, we know that Jamie Collins and Jahlani Tavai are safe. However, after that, we really don't know what the depth is going to look like as far as, order in the depth chart, as well as who is actually going to be staying on the roster. Now, we got guys competing for this like Jason Cabinda, Jared Davis, Elijah Lee, Anthony Pittman, Reggie Ragland, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Now, all of them are competing for this depth linebacker spot. All of them are competing for roster spots and playing times and depth chart positions, but nobody really knows who's going to get it. Obviously, some people think Jared Davis is going to have a great season. Some people think that he's just at a bust already and they're ready to give up on him. But I really think everybody in this room competing for a spot is young and talented. I think Jared Davis has a lot of potential. I think Jason Cabinda has a lot of talent. I think Elijah Lee is a young and talented linebacker. Anthony Pittman, Reggie Ragland, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin have all shown things in the NFL that can make them very, very solid depth linebackers in the NFL, but not all of them are going to make it. So, the Detroit Lions have to decide what they like in their linebackers. Do they like guys that can cover? Do they like guys that can stop the run? Do they like big hitters? Do they like guys that are fundamentally sound and just make the tackle? We have all of these different types of linebackers in the room, so the Detroit Lions have to decide what they like in their linebackers and who they think is the best position to fill this depth linebacker role, because the depth linebackers are going to play. The Detroit Lions have played a lot of linebackers last year. They rotate guys around a lot, and the depth linebackers are going to play, so they have to be able to play. You can't just pick a guy to be the second string linebackers and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, they're not going to play, because they are, whether that be from fatigue throughout a game or injury throughout the season. These depth linebackers are going to play, so they have to be good enough where you can put them in and still believe that they are good enough to make an impact and a positive impact at that on your team. Moving on to the 4th toughest decision the Detroit Lions have to make. I said depth running back. Now, again, just like the linebackers, we know the top two. We know Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift are going to get the majority of the carries. Behind them, who knows? Is Bo Scarborough going to make the roster? He didn't get here till late last season. And then, there's obviously a reason the Detroit Lions didn't bring him in until he was really their seventh running back option. Who's going to win the battle between Ty Johnson and Jason Huntley? They're both kind of similar big play threats. Who's going to win that job? And then can Wes Hillis make an impact? Can Wes Hillis stay on the roster and prove that he is worth a roster spot on this Detroit Lions offense? I mean, again, just like the linebackers, you could say it's depth, so who cares? But at the same time, just like the linebackers, the Detroit Lions went through 7 or 8 running backs this last year. They had Kerryon Johnson, they had C.J. Anderson, they had Paul Perkins, and they had Wes Hillis and Trey Carson playing. They had Bo Scarborough playing. They had Ty Johnson playing. All of these running backs got time last year. All of these running backs came in and played a significant amount of snaps, at least in one game. And, they're going to play. These depth positions, at first you might not say that they're super important because they're not starters, but, these depth positions are important because just because they're depth and they're not starting the game doesn't mean they're not going to play. And if we want to be a good running team, we're going to need good running backs. And, the depth and the players that the Detroit Lions choose to sign at this depth position is going to be very important to the running back success in 2020. Moving on to the third toughest decision the Detroit Lions have to make. I said depth safety. Now, I have this above running back and linebacker because there is so many different ways the Detroit Lions can go on this that, nobody really knows. Now, obviously, Tracy Walker and Duron Harmon are going to be starters, right? We know that Duron Harmon's most likely going to be starting at free safety, and Tracy Walker is most likely going to be starting at strong safety. However, behind that, who knows? I mean, we have three returning safeties. We have one free agent safety that we just brought in, and we have 3 undrafted safeties that we brought in. I mean, we have Will Harris, Miles Killebrew, and CJ Moore all returning from last year, all veteran safeties that have been here for a while and know the scheme, know the system of the Detroit Lions. We brought in Jaron Kearse, who I'm very high on, but has just been suspended for 3 games, and that could be an impact on his training camp, or that could have an impact on the Detroit Lions' decision on him. We just brought in 3 undrafted free safeties in Jeremiah Dinson, Jalen Elliott, and Bobby Price. So, once again, kind of like the linebackers, all of these guys are fairly young and very, very talented. Will Harris, obviously a former third-round pick, he's going to make the team, but what role is he going to have and how much playing time is he going to get? Miles Killebrew is more of a special teams guy. CJ Moore played a little bit last year, but, to me, didn't show a whole lot. Jaron Kearse, I think, is immensely talented, but again, got suspended, so we don't really know how often he's going to play, and we don't know how that suspension is going to affect his tenure with the Lions. And then the undrafted free agents are very, very talented. Jeremiah Dinson was a full-time starter in the University of Auburn who had a great secondary. Jalen Elliott is a 3-year captain at Notre Dame in that secondary and is a great leader and a good playmaker. And then Bobby Price is so athletic at 6'4". He's a big guy. He's kind of like Jaron Kearse. He has that potential. He's a big guy, 6'4", has all the speed, all the athletic ability in the world. And, could he make an impact? Could he make the roster? We just don't know who these depth safeties are going to be. We don't know, how many safeties the Lions are going to carry. We don't know what order or what combination of safeties are going to make this roster. And it's going to be, in my opinion, one of the hardest decisions for the Detroit Lions to make because, in my opinion, all of these safeties can make plays. All of these safeties have a lot of upside and a lot of potential. It's just a matter of finding who has the highest ceiling right now, who has the highest floor right now, and who the Detroit Lions think is the best safety moving into the 2020 season for them. Moving on to the number 2 decision. Now, this one gets a little bit more specific. It's Quintez Cephus versus Jamal Agnew. Now, the Detroit Lions, just like the other three spots so far, know the starters. They know Kenny Golladay is the number 1 receiver. They know Marvin Jones is the number 2. They know Amendola is the 3 and Hall is the 4. But who is that 5th receiver? Now, historically, the Detroit Lions have only carried 5 wide receivers by week 1, and the really 2 big contenders right now for that wide receiver 5 spot are Quintez Cephus, the 5th-round rookie we got out of Wisconsin, and Jamal Agnew, the former cornerback converted to wide receiver. Now, I really think both these guys can bring a different thing to the offense. Now, Agnew obviously has the speed. He's an all-pro kick and punt returner, so he brings that to the table. You know, he has that game-breaking speed where if he gets past the guy, he's pretty much gone. Not a whole lot of people are catching up with Jamal Agnew if he does get past them, and that's helped him in his kick return game, and I think that can help him at wide receiver. Now, with that being said, we kind of already have that big play, deep play threat in Marvin Hall, who averaged over 37 yards a catch last season and led the NFL in yards per reception. So we kind of already have that big play threat. So do we need another speedy wide receiver out there that, you know, has shown throughout his NFL career, has some fairly inconsistent hands? Now, he might be able to fix that. He might not at the wide receiver position, training with the wide receiver coaches, but that is yet to be seen. And then we move on to Quintez Cephus, a guy that I really, really liked out of the draft. You know, I had us drafting him in my mock draft out of Wisconsin. I think he has great hands. He's a good route runner. He's very, very physical after the catch. Reminds me a little bit of Golden Tate from that aspect, that he doesn't want to go down. He wants to get as many yards after the catch as possible. And, you know, he's been playing the wide receiver position longer. He has the experience at that position. He has better hands. He has better route running. Doesn't necessarily have the speed that Agnew brings to the table, but as far as intangibles like hands, route running, mentality, physicality, yards after the catch, Quintez Cephus is better at that than Jamal Agnew right now, and I think that could be a huge factor for him to make the roster. Like, you know, you go back and forth between these two. Each of them brings something very, very different to the table, and I could see the Detroit Lions using both of them in very different but mutually effective ways in this roster and in the 2020 season. I could see plays where Jamal Agnew is just sent deep and either beats the safety and Stafford lays out an absolute bomb and we get an 80-yard touchdown, or Jamal Agnew just goes deep and takes that safety away, takes that cornerback deep down the field, and that opens up something underneath. Or I could see Quintez Cephus working underneath, you know, getting those tough, grimy yards, you know, getting yards after the catch. On 3rd and 1, you know, you have him run a quick slant, he gets a catch, takes a big hit over the middle, but he's still ready to go. He's still ready to get up and hit right back. So, like, they have very different roles, and I could see them being mutually effective for the Detroit Lions. So this is one of the toughest decisions the Detroit Lions have to make, but it's not as tough as the first and the most important and the toughest decision the Detroit Lions have to make this training camp is the guard position. Now, obviously, y'all knew it was coming. It's, you know, the only starting position on this list, so it has to be the most important, because whoever they decide to cut, whoever they decide to start and be the backup is going to dictate our. And, you know, you might say that that's a little overboard, but truly, if the Detroit Lions don't have good guards, they're going to give up pressure. They're not going to be able to open holes in the run game, and therefore our offense is going to take a step back. And if our defense can't step up, the organization is going to struggle once again, and it's going to be another year where the Detroit Lions say, what if this happened? What if we had good guards? What if our offensive line had played better? You know, it's going to be another what if kind of a season if the Detroit Lions do not make the correct decision here. Now, the guys competing for this spot include guys like Joe Dahl, Kenny Wiggins, Oday Aboushi, Jonah Jackson, Logan Stenberg. Some people have even talked about moving Big V into guard and putting somebody else out at tackle. Like, there are so many different mixes. There are so many different combinations that you could put. You can put in Jackson and Stenberg. You could put in Aboushi and Jackson, Dahl and Wiggins. Like, there are so many combinations that you could put in and transition around that offensive line that it's just so impossible to tell right now. You know, as I said, just like the last decision the Detroit Lions have to make, you know, between Amendola and Cephus, like, I could see all of these guys starting, you know, because we've seen Dahl start, we've seen Wiggins start, we've seen Oday Aboushi play some significant time. You know, Jonah Jackson has some very high upside. Logan Stenberg arguably has the highest ceiling out of anybody in the guard room right now. Like, I can see a combination of any two of these guys starting together alongside each other, and it just makes it so tough because I don't necessarily think any of them are pulling ahead right now. You know, all of them have their strengths, all of them have their weaknesses. You know, I love Logan Stenberg. I think he's going to be great in the NFL, but right now he struggles with penalties and pass protection. You know, Jonah Jackson is very technically sound, but he is not the greatest athlete. Oday Aboushi and Joe Dahl and Kenny Wiggins have all started in the NFL before, and they've all played significant snaps, but none of them have ever really been considered among the even above average guards. So do you go with the higher ceiling? Do you go with the higher floor? Do you go with a mixture of the two? Like, how do you decide who starts at guard? Because this is the most important and toughest decision the Detroit Lions organization has to make in this training camp. With that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there are other tough decisions, obviously there are a ton of other tough decisions the Detroit Lions have to make this offseason, but those those are the 5 that I felt were the most important and the toughest ones to make for the Detroit Lions this offseason and in this training camp. Let me know down in the comments below, did I miss a tough decision? Is there somebody else on the roster, maybe 2 players competing, maybe a position, maybe maybe a roster spot that you think is more important or more of a difficult decision that the Detroit Lions organization has to make? Let me know that down in the comments down below. But with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see all of you in the video tomorrow. Bye, guys.